thank you all so much for joining in. This is our first Frontier Forum of the year. We're here with Cayden Pierce, the founder of Mentra, one of our portfolio companies in Fund 2. And as many of you know, or all of you know at this point, we are running an SPV on Mentra as we have decided to make a strategic partnership with Mentra because we've been observing the ecosystem for the last year. We're extremely bullish, Mentra and Cayden and the whole team as they're building the first open operating system for smart glasses. And we, having backed so many companies in the XR space, wearable space, human augmentation space, we want to make it a bigger bet. So we are following on into the company up, bringing our total investment to $1.1 million. And we have additional size in this SPV. So Cayden is here to answer all your questions. And I had a lot of people already come in. So before I jump the gun, let me give Cayden a chance to say hello and also maybe give us the highlight of Mentra. I know everybody's gotten the memo. They ideally read the memo, but give us like your view of what Mentra as the company is and where it fits in, particularly in compared to where the world is currently at the stage of smart glasses.
Yeah, sounds good. Hey everybody, nice to meet you. I'm Cayden, and at Mentra we're building the operating system for smart glasses. So we kind of start from the assumption that smart glasses are coming. Smart glasses are the next personal computer, and looking at the history of personal computing, it's abundantly clear that there is always one operating system that kind of ends up winning, that is massively intercompatible and massively distributed. So, desktops and laptops had Windows as that, massively intercompatible, massively distributed operating system. And that was, they got 90% plus market share on personal computers. And then when we switched to smartphones as a new paradigm shift in personal computing, you couldn't really copy paste Windows onto smartphones. There were new problems with like the power optimization, the UI, the radio, all this stuff. And so a new OS was needed, but there was still the same game theory problem of, okay, there's all the different software applications for the new paradigm. There's all the different bits of hardware. There needs to be an operating system in between that makes them intercompatible. So, the game theory still played itself out. And in that case, it was Android that came along and fixed the new problems that were introduced by the new paradigm. And it took the place of Windows. And then now there's another personal computing paradigm shift happening right this moment, which is we're switching to smart glasses. We see the massive potential of smart glasses, obviously, to completely change the way that we live our lives, from, returning hearing to the deaf, sight to the blind, making ourselves 1,000 more times more intelligent, connecting us directly with AI, helping us communicate in new ways. That's an amazing future that we want to kind of bring to fruition. But we see, just like you couldn't copy paste Windows onto smartphones, you can't copy paste Android onto smart glasses. There's new problems with where the apps actually run, the power limitations, the fact that all of the apps are AI based and need access to super powerful AI models. And we want smart glasses to happen. And we see, okay, the AI is obviously here, and the hardware is here. You see what's on my head. You see what Felix is wearing right now. They look like normal glasses, but the software is missing. The OS is missing. And we don't see anybody else solving that problem remotely. We've been working on this from a lot of angles for me, 8 years at this point. And I just see, the hardware's come along, the AI's come along, but there's no way for this to actually get deployed and for apps to be built unless somebody builds an operating system. And so that's what we're doing. That's what MentraOS is. It's meant to be the next massively intercompatible, massively distributed OS for the next personal computer.
Amazing. And by the way, the glasses you're wearing right now, those are the to be released Mentra Display. So we talked about them in our memo, but this is actually a fully functioning one of the first versions that he's got access to.
Yeah, I've been traveling recently. I just spent a week in China to pick these up, work on them with the team. And then I came to Mito this week in Italy, where we showed them off to people in the eyewear industry and had some really great demos that blew a lot of minds, because they didn't really fully realize the kind of form factor that we could achieve.
So one of the questions that one of our LPs submitted that kind of fits in here really well is, he was concerned or worried, and like this is something I've brought up sometimes too, is like there's obviously a big opportunity in software to be solved, but clearly we're also going after the hardware. You've got Mentra Live, you're doing Mentra Displays. Why are you going after both hardware and software, and where do you think the value really accrues? What kind of problem is it that needs to be solved?
Yeah, well, the problem that needs to be solved is building the operating system, and that's what we're focused on. And we're building hardware because it enables us to build the OS better and faster. So right now, this is still a nascent space in a lot of ways. And if we want to build a great smart glasses OS for display glasses, then we need display glasses that we can control the code on, and that we can interface with directly, and that I think also that has some real adoption in the world that kind of aligns with the types of use cases that we see people are adopting today. Same thing with the camera glasses. We need to be able to, if we want to add camera support, we want to have an operating system for smart glasses that supports camera glasses, then we need to have a pair, and we need to be able to write all the code for it, and all that code needs to be available to OEMs who will then be able to integrate it onto the glasses that they're building. So we're building the hardware right now because it's the best way to move the OS forward, and also to prove to the OEMs that it's something that actually works. And then as time goes on, quite rapidly, this is going to become reference designs, right? Like within a couple of years, as we're signing OEMs, the question is going to rise more and more of like, well, why are you competing with us on hardware? And very quickly, we'll answer that by saying we're not. These are only reference designs. So for now, we got to go all out on that. But as time goes on, it will be more like a reference design.
That makes sense. And then in terms of explain to us, and I've laid a lot of this out, my views in the memo, but it came up several times. Where do you see yourself placing, like in the context of the Max 7, for example? There are obviously more and more players. Meta has done the Ray-Bans. You've got Google coming out with Android XR. Apple's had the Apple Vision Pro and at least talked about interesting glasses. OpenAI acquired Johnny Ive's wearables company. They're going to do something. Where do you see yourself falling in this whole pie, so to say?
Yeah, well, we believe that the kind of game theory of personal computing is going to keep playing out, where there needs to be one operating system that is, massively distributed and highly intercompatible, and there can't be a bunch of those, because developers want to write one app or maybe maximum a couple of applications, and users want to get comfortable with one or two main operating systems. And so we don't expect, I don't expect that there's going to be 7 different, closed SDK walled gardens that succeed. I expect that there's going to be, there might be one or two of those, that someone will be the Apple of smart glasses. Maybe it's Apple, maybe it's Meta or something like that. But no matter what happens, I don't think that glasses are fundamentally completely different in terms of like devs are building apps for them. Users are utilizing them, and there's a bunch of different companies who are building hardware. We see like if we currently look at like the distribution of companies who are building laptops, companies that are building tablets, companies that are building phones, companies that are building TWS earbuds. We look at the distribution of volume. It's split up across dozens of different companies, right? And I think that that's going to continue to be the case. There's going to be lots of different players. And so there has to be one, OS that's massively distributed throughout all of those, so that all of those apps can run on all of that hardware.
Mhm.
And we believe it's going to be MentraOS. So we're not really competing with Apple and Meta in that sense. But we will be competing with Google. Android XR is their swing at creating a massively intercompatible and massively distributed OS that's going to power smart glasses. We think that they're taking the massively wrong approach. If they were taking the right approach, we'd probably just say, well, use Android XR. But we don't think that what they're building is going to work. We're currently in MentraOS 2.0, and what they're releasing is very similar to what we had back over a year ago, that we already made, deployed, shipped, and realized wasn't going to work, and they're not even going to be shipping that for 2 years is their current projection. So we think they've kind of failed before they've started in terms of their current approach. Of course, they can update it. I mean, there's a long story as to why we will beat Android XR. But yeah, I think in terms of that group, they might make great glasses, they might make great applications that run on the glasses, but there's going to need to be a uh, massively distributed intercompatible OS.
So actually, a lot of LPs agreed with the idea that there's a need for an OSS. A lot of the pushback or question came around how do you effectively monetize it? Because essentially, there's history where with open ecosystem, whether it's like a Linux, they haven't been able to monetize it well and turn it into real business, or that people they build on the operating system, but then like they sell it on on their own websites, on their own stores without paying royalties. How do you build a full business around this kind of infrastructure?
Yeah, I think there's the couple main ways. They're both coming from software, but the couple main ways here are the App Store itself, and taking a cut of sales on the App Store for buying apps and buying subscriptions. And then there's also it's the App Store, but it's our own applications. So because we're here from day one, we're building some of the best basic applications that you kind of expected to come with your glasses. We expect that we'll be able to win some of those basic apps like captions and translation and notes and those kind of things that we could in the future, have a premium tier for. So that one's kind of easier to understand. Okay, you've got, if we have a billion plus people using our OS on their glasses, and a significant percentage of them are using those main applications and paying for them, then we directly profit from that. And then there's the App Store itself, which is developers will have the choice to use our payment system, and they will choose to use it because you have a much higher conversion rate if you use it than if you try to send somebody somewhere else. And we can take a cut from that, and we also give a cut of that to the OEMs who actually made the glasses. So whatever glasses are currently connected, they will get a cut from that as well. Now, will people try to go around it? Well, I think the best thing to compare it to is not necessarily Linux, but Android. And
Mm-hmm.
Google's making hundreds of billions, bringing in hundreds of billions from their app store, and you can still sideload applications very easily. You can download APK Pure and never use the Google Play Store again. But there's a massive network effect that occurs from having the curation of the store. So people trust, like, the developers want to put apps on the App Store because that's where all the users are. And the users are all there because that's where all the apps are and because they can trust it, right? People really care about trust. What application are you running on your computer or your phone or your face? They say, oh, well, these Google reviews, this Google package, I know has been verified and is something that I can trust. And so I think people will, people do use the default app store that comes with the operating system.
I know Rich is one of your investors. What's maybe like the best piece of advice he's given you on that front, like beating Microsoft, if you will?
Um, I think just the best piece of advice was that we need to make sure we focus on OEMs. Like, remember that the reason we're going to win is not because of us. I mean, it is because of our software, but it's not because of our hardware or because we just take over the whole market on our own, but that we really got to make sure that we uh, put the time into building the relationships with the OEMs and getting the deals done with the OEMs. And it has been a focus, but like just even the last couple of months, and why I'm here in Italy right now at Mito is because we've taken that very seriously.
And how do you think you're going to win over OEMs versus the big tech companies where Meta already has a relationship with Luxottica through with Meta Ray-Bans, Oakleys, and so forth?
Um, well, because the most of the eyewear industry doesn't want to be seen as a tech company. They care about their brands a lot, and they want to be able to build their own glasses and profit from building those glasses. They want to stay the eyewear kings, right? They don't want to be a accessory to a big tech company. They really want to own this. And EssilorLuxottica is big, but there's another 50% plus of the eyewear industry that isn't them. And they are now really, really interested in smart eyewear as they've seen what EssilorLuxottica has done with the Meta Ray-Ban and stuff. But there aren't, at least at this moment, they don't really have They don't really have many other options, but they desperately need it. And even if they had other options of like making, a co-branded glasses with big tech, they don't like it. I just spent 3 days at Mito, and many people ask me as they're kind of wringing their hands if we're going to try to force a co-brand with them. If we help them make their glasses smart, because that's not what they want, and that doesn't align with their brand, and it doesn't align with their opticians. Like EssilorLuxottica has an advantage in the distribution in one way because they own the retail. But most of the big players who we would want to partner with don't actually own the retail. And so they have their margin when they sell wholesale to opticians. And then opticians have their own, markup and their own things that they care about. And you have to kind of consider that whole thing. And we're not just gunning for, because glasses are different than phones in some ways, where there's a medical prescription for your glasses.
Yep.
There's 2 to 3 billion people wearing them that with prescriptions. And so that's, I don't think that we're just going to completely do away with the existing eyewear industry. So yeah, if we talk about like the eyewear OEMs, because they want to be able to maintain their brand, and they want to be able to, uh, offer something that just basically has their name on it, and that they can make a profit from, right? That they can own themselves. And then the tech companies, why would they partner? Well, if there were other options, like say there's Android XR, why would they go with us versus Android XR? And it's because Android XR doesn't allow you to make lightweight glasses, right? All the tech companies who are making glasses, especially in China, are realizing, oh, no one buys these or uses these things when they're heavy, and all the Android glasses are way too heavy and bulky. And so we need to make something that is super lightweight. Yeah, like
These are like
compare
a quick
between.
comparison of the even realities versus the Meta Ray-Ban displays. This one is fairly small and light on my head. This one is, I like to say it's a statement piece. Yeah, I look like I come from some fashion for show or something. But pretty strong frames.
Yeah.
Um,
So I think the
and
two strong reasons is just like it allows them to make good smart glasses, and in the end, they want to win, and also because it's more attractive. The game theory that we've set up is more attractive, where they can take a cut. They see that they know that maybe now they can make money from the hardware, but they know there's going to be more commoditization, and the margins are going to get really slim, and that the same thing happened in phones, and they want some way to capture value going forward. And if it's Android, that's not going to happen for them. If it's MentraOS, they have the opportunity to get some of that recurring revenue. I think that's one of the ways we're going to really be able to win, by aligning incentives of not just users and devs, um, but also the OEMs.
let me move towards growth and distribution. Something I think a lot of people observing the space, they still think of it as like a hobbyist category, or many probably don't think that you can do much on the smart glasses. I'll give a very quick personal anecdote. So over the weekend, this thing came out called MaltBot, where essentially you can run AI locally on your own machine. You can hook it up to whatever model you want, OpenAI, Anthropic, and so forth. You have a big context window, and pretty much you can give it all the rights to do whatever you want. So over the weekend, I told her, hey, go build me some Mentor apps. And as of this afternoon, it actually did ship its very first MentraOS app that's live in this thing right now. So I'm not going
Nice.
to say his name, because if I say his name, we've built it so much that it's an AI assistant where he can send emails for me, he can order me Uber Eats, he can text me, he can do everything I want pretty much. And usually when I'm at home, I have a home mode where it listens to everything. So I just talk back and forth to him now. Or if I am in out mode, I activate him by his name. So I'm not going to say his name because then he activates. But the fascinating thing is that because it was an open operating system, I pretty much just had my Moltbot more or less look at all the documentation, all the GitHubs of Mentra, and start building on top of it. And like again, it's published in like my developer mode, but it's in the app, in the Mentra app. I see the little app, and that of course is a mode that a lot of the big techs don't have, which is I can't build for these meta Ray-Bans if I wanted to. Meanwhile, there's so many hackers out there now that can start experimenting and building for smart glasses. And so that brings me out to the question and the new category that I want to explore, which is how do you get to call it the first 5 million devices? I know there's demand for the space. I think Meta Ray-Ban sold 5 million units last year. I think even Reality sold like 50,000 units. I know you have a thesis around the deaf and hard of hearing. How does that roadmap look like over 12 months, 24 months, 36 months? How do you get from that initial wedge to a mainstream consumer device?
Yeah. Well, I think first we should take a step back and say like what smart glasses actually exist today. Because we're talking about how great and how cool it is that our glasses are really lightweight and stuff. But
Yep.
we start with this belief, and it's more than a belief. Happy to happy to provide the scientific paper showing that people won't wear glasses that are much past 40 grams.
Yep.
They'll put them on, they'll try for a demo or whatever, but they take them off. Oakley has had this internal thing. If it's more than 37 grams, it's a temporary glasses. And then maybe that's a little low, but it's around this area. And so for us, if this is going to go past a toy into something that gets adopted in real life past, or it's just a few early adopters buying it because it's cool and it's something that's getting adopted, then it has to be super lightweight. And
Mhm.
then on top of that, if it's dead after an hour, then that's also just, if it's going to get past a toy, it has to also be running throughout the day. So you have these fundamental limitations of all day wearability and all day functionality. And well, what can we actually achieve in all day wearability that, physically comfortable and socially comfortable and neurologically comfortable in terms of like the display, having a display in both eyes? Um, and also that it can run all the time. There's kind of a limitations in what's possible, but we believe that it's still can be incredibly useful. So the glasses you're wearing now, Felix, the glasses I'm
Yep.
wearing now have a similar stack in terms of specs, which is a
Yep.
binocular display that's pretty small, can show a little bit of text,
And
maybe an
very
image.
important choice because I know whether it's Meta Ray-Bans or Ravens, they have the monocular one where you're pretty much forced to do cross-eyed, and it's a big discomfort. So being
Yeah.
binocular is a huge difference.
Yeah, and again, we can show the papers or just the anecdotes of we've put these on thousands of people, and you'll get a headache in 15 minutes. And all the big tech companies, their timeline for whatever 2027, 2028 is to go binocular, but right now it's not even remotely realistic. And then they're already in their massive frames. So
Yep.
70 those Meta Ray-Ban displays are 73 grams, and so whatever you can do with those it's a little bit irrelevant. Like Mentra, we could go make those glasses right now. We could copy them. I'm friends with every supplier that's in those glasses. It just doesn't make any sense to make those because no one's going to ever wear them for more than an hour, and it's going to hurt their head, right? So this is what is possible now. We have just there's a display and a microphone, but what we've realized over the last year deploying our OS on glasses like the Even Realities G1 is that there are some really killer apps for the existing glasses right now. The top ones that we see in our store is captions, specifically people who are deaf and hard of hearing running captions and subtitles. It's also translation, and it's also like AI note taking slash like proactive AI. And so we have really leaned into just because of the numbers have leaned into captions, and we see that is going to be it will take time for the supply chain to develop. So now we can add speakers. Now we can add full color. Now we can add a camera with the display, and now we have tracking. And then we eventually get to that AR holy grail future that everybody's kind of excited about. But in the meantime, the real volume driver here is going to be something that you can wear all the time that has a really clear utility. So I see something like captions where there's 500 million people who have hearing issues, and 400 million of them have hearing aids that they wear every single day. There's 400 million people who've spent thousands of dollars on a device a wearable electronic device that they put on their head to help them with their hearing. And the results we see in terms of like our users using this for 8+ hours a day, every single day, the amount of the early PMF that this is showing, I think is massive. And so I expect that the early adoption isn't coming from the kinds of use cases that you're seeing in a Meta ad or something like that. But it's actually coming from this, call it niche, or this beachhead use case of captions, and that's going to grow. And I think we will move hundreds of thousands and maybe low millions of units in that space. And then we're going to be speed running to signing OEMs. Just that's why I'm here at Mito, and we've had some insane progress here just this weekend, signing OEMs who then go to the tens of millions and potentially even hundreds of millions of units over the next few years.
One of the LPs just asked, what is the process for adding prescriptions to the Mentra Lives or even realities classes? I mean, that's
Sorry,
pretty.
what is the cost? Is that the
No,
question?
what is the process for adding prescriptions? You can do that straight on the
Process.
website, right?
Yeah. So the answer is Mentra Live is just normal pair of glasses, and any local optical shop can pop in your lenses. And we're actually about 6 weeks away from you just order it from the website, and we'll do it for you. There's nothing complicated because there's no display. Um, then there's the Mentra Display glasses, and
Yeah.
because they have a waveguide, they have a display already,
Yeah.
a lens already. Now you need to basically make a stack. And part of the reason that I'm here at Mito um, right now is to connect with some of the lens companies that we're working with to integrate the lenses. And fortunately, actually, like just in the last couple of days, we basically have solved it. And we found a company who could make the lenses. So, basically you have a zero base curve lens. So there's the waveguide, which is flat. You have another lens which comes in and the front is flat and all the prescription is added to the back. And so it's not something you do at a local optical shop, but it's something basically we make the glasses end to end. A customer orders the glasses from us. We make the lens the same day. We glue it in the same day. We can ship it. It takes maybe 2 days to go from China to the US. And then, like we should be able to get these within like a week with RX at your door.
Got it. Yeah, right. So it happens directly through you guys. There's no additional work that essentially the customer would need to make. They wouldn't need to go to the optical shop and so forth.
Correct.
Only
Yeah, and we're doing work now to design to change how like make it so you don't glue it in, but have a better mounting method so that your optical shops could do it because we want to get that distribution into we really need to, the eyewear industry is old and rigid and slow, and our best bet is to make as few changes as possible so that, the opticians can make money and sell a lens and mount it in. So that's we're working towards that. Will that be in Mentra Display, the first one, or a follow-up? I'm not sure what version it will be in. Depends on how fast we can move on it, but yeah.
Yeah. James asks, also one second, because it goes in the same direction. What about bifocal glasses? I don't know what that is. Do you know what bifocal glasses are?
Yeah, so bifocals, absolutely. They're actually not as common now. Really, almost everybody who would go for a progressive lens instead of bifocal, but bifocal we can do easily. Progressives is a little bit more challenging, but we can do it. So basically we have this display here, and then what normally in a progressive, there'd be a continuous progression down here. You have this intermediate zone in the middle. We basically just keep the myopic region, the farsighted region, all on the top in the display part. It's hard to see. There you go. We keep the myopic part here, and then we'd have it do a fast transition, and then there's your reading area there. So that's also
Ah,
possible.
super cool. Um, Oh, whatever Gleitsicht is in English. I'll look it up. Meanwhile, there's a long question, which I think is a good one, by Danny. He asks, one step back, why do you think glasses will be the de facto AI form factor? He was listening today to Tony Fadal, and he is generally critical of devices that try to solve problems that don't exist for the user. He argued that devices like Google Glass failed because they didn't solve a specific necessary problem for the user. Why do you think the customer would want this device versus something they already own or are used to in their current use case, for example, like AirPods?
Well, I'd say there's different angles to take this from. So yeah, I mean, the specific use case thing, I agree. You do need to start with a specific use case, and that's why we're really focusing on captions. But maybe like let's go at the higher level, the personal computing HCI um, angle of things. And really, we are continuously increasing our bandwidth with our computers. Personal computing continues to get more personal and higher bandwidth all of the time. We started 500 million years ago with this animal brain. 50 million years ago, a neocortex wraps itself around another layer on top of that, which is what we're using now to communicate back and forth. And then just 5,000 years ago, we developed the exocortex, right? With the development of writing. Our cognition starts happening outside of ourselves. And the story of technology has been continuously improving that exocortex and the bandwidth that we have with it. And I don't see that stopping anytime soon. And the visual system is the highest bandwidth input to our brain. And if we're talking about an always-on computing, ambient computing, like how do we get much more than taking our phones out of our pocket 200 times a day? Well, you put that display and those speakers right on your face, so you don't have to pull it out. It's already there. And anybody who's tried talking to ChatGPT probably switched back really quickly to talking to it and reading back what it said as opposed to listening because it's way higher bandwidth to read. Our visual system is like orders of magnitude higher bandwidth than anything else, and so glasses are the only way that you're going to get that information. Uh, Unless you have a brain-computer interface, which I think we will get to, but the glasses will come first. So yeah, that's why.
For me, the thing I would also add is the more I work with AI, obviously the less you do and the more you just become a source of natural language input. Like even for example, working with Maltbot, where in the past, like AI would tell me, okay, I need access to this thing, or now you need to click this thing. Now I just say, do it yourself. And essentially it does most of the tasks. So at this point, it's kind of like a real employee where you get a message in and you just respond. Now, if you stick to a phone, for example, you'll be constantly like essentially interrupting your day-to-day life and like constantly pulling up the phone, getting the next answer, putting it back in, then pulling out, doing the next answer. I think with glasses, it becomes a lot more seamless and integrates into your life, where also technology becomes a function of enhancing your life versus pulling you away from it. And I think that's probably one of the things I like the most about glasses over phones is that they essentially your experience is the primary view and this is the enhancement versus this becomes the primary view and all of our heads are permanently down. And compared to AirPods, I think the very simple differentiator is that like you have POV, and I think that matters because without it, AI will never have the context of what I'm seeing, and so then all it relies on is just my voice versus being able to actually engage with the world around me.
Sure, yeah. I think that's all right, except you could probably throw a little camera on an AirPod type thing, but just fundamentally, you got to get information into your eyes. And yeah, I think it's great that you brought up like yeah, being in the real world. There are just a lot of use cases, things that people really wish they could do with their computer that you can really only do if you have
Two
if you
hands.
have smart glasses on, right? Like you want to have a conversation with someone where you're connecting with them. You're running translation. Like you can't be staring at your phone. Same thing with captions. You want to have an AI that helps you think in the real world. Like one of the problems is AI is not in our conversation. AI, we have this whole conversation, then afterwards maybe you transcribe it and you can have a conversation with AI about it. But when someone mentions something that isn't actually aligned with the data, I want AI to go look it up and tell me that's not actually the case, and you're being led astray right this moment. When somebody, when it's someone's first day on the job and they're getting a bunch of jargon thrown at them and they don't know what they don't know, like they should be getting those definitions overlaid on their vision so that they can be following along. When you're arguing with your buddy about the air pollution levels in different cities around the world and where you'd want to live, it should be pulling up the World Health Organization data, and both of you can see that, so you have a little bit of ground data to connect to ground things and connect things. Like it's going to make us more intelligent, and we still are going to connect with people in the real world. I don't think we're all going to be sitting in the bathtub with a Soylent drip wearing VR. I think we're going to stay in the real world and love the real world, but we're going to want to augment ourselves in the real world.
Fully agree. Fully agree. And I was activating my intelligence mode so I can actually use it while we're in here. Help me ask better questions. Um, I got another question from James. He asked if I wanted to try the classes as part of my DD, how long would it take to get a pair in my hands, no prescription? It's my understanding Mentra Lives, they're getting sold pre-order right now.
Um, yeah, I mean, it depends. It depends on what you want. So, Mentra Live ships on February 13th. We're kind of specifically closing this before that, just so we can kind of focus in. But uh, that batch is already sold out, so it would be more so at this point, later into February that you'd get a pair. You could get yourself a pair of Even Realities G1 that Felix is wearing right now. That is up to Even Realities shipping time. But if you bought a G1 with non-prescription, it would come in 1 or 2 weeks.
Yeah. And James, I know you live in LA. You can probably there must be people in LA, maybe even in your friend circle that might own an even Reality's G1
Yeah.
that it can run on. Because
Yeah, yeah.
essentially, as of today, like again, right now it's running on MentraOS. So if I pull up, for example, my Mentra app,
Yeah. You just go to the App Store on Android or iPhone, you download the app, you
yeah.
click
So
connect,
right
and
now my Jarvis is running, for example, right? You
yeah.
can activate between various different apps like captions, translations, calendar, and so forth. Mentor Merge is a cool app that they built where essentially it listens to everything you're saying and it will try to inject in relevant information that will maybe make you smarter, decode some jargon, make it easier to, understand conversations and have more insights.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any more questions so far? Someone just came in. Is the processing in the classes fast enough so that when you're in a live conversation in a language you don't speak, the classes translate for you fast enough for you to respond at the same pace as if you spoke the same language? And does this process on the local device or does it need to connect online?
Yeah, that's a great question. I just got back from China, and my Chinese is getting a lot better, but certainly not perfect. And so I use the glasses a lot, especially in technical conversations. And would I say no one knows that I'm using it? I would not say that, but I would say that it's good enough that it allows us to have a conversation. I can respond in Chinese. It's a lot easier to speak than to listen. So I can read what they say, and then I can respond back. And I have full technical conversations with our engineers. Carl, our VP of eyewear, who speaks zero Chinese, will sit down with our MD engineer, and they will both be wearing G1s running our translation, and they will have a full work session together. So is there some latency? Yes, there is, and we can also tune it to be a little bit lower latency and a little bit less accurate. And we've tuned it to be the sweet spot that people really like, and we have people who are using this daily to get by. So you can try it. You can also, I guess, one thing to point out that I should have said earlier is you can try MentraOS without glasses. So you could download the MentraOS app from the store right now and click I don't have glasses and then run translation. You just start it and then you tap it. Once it's started, you tap it again, it'll open it up and you can translate between any language and watch it on the screen. And as fast as it shows up on your phone screen is how it shows up on the glasses. And you'll probably be pretty blown away because we have our AI partner, Soniox. They love what we're doing. They bought our glasses. They run MentraOS and they've been tuning a lot of their stuff based on our feedback, which has been killer because a lot of people in the industry are using them. It's great that they're listening to us. They have the best translation model in the world. We've tried all of them, and so I think you'll like it. It's actually like mind blowing.
I would say I tested it with even some of the people in the room here. I was visiting one of our LPs in Tokyo, and this was maybe in May of last year. And so back then, there might have still been like 10-15 second latency. I think at this point it feels like it's down to like 2 seconds, or maybe would you say like that's a ballpark for
Yeah, I'd
translation?
say like one and a half to three, depending on the complexity, um, something like that.
Which, funny enough, so because I switched it to intelligence mode, when I read that question aloud from Ben, it also gave me the answer right in my classes, and its best guesstimate was that it was about 2 to 3 second latency.
Sounds
uh,
right. Yeah.
because it said audio leads to cloud transcription, leads to translation, leads to display. Um, that was at least the pipeline it guessed.
Yeah, and I mean, Yeah, it depends on the language pairs and this kind of stuff, but it's mostly a limitation on the models side, and the models get better really fast.
Yep, yep. Awesome. See, another question. What is the release schedule for the classes Cayden is wearing? What do you expect from the upcoming Google Classes release?
The release schedule is around July this year. We haven't officially announced the glasses yet, but that's what we're on track for. And we're making a couple moves to maybe even get that a little sooner, but I'd say about July. And the other question is about what the Google glasses that are coming out. So there's a lot of them, and it feels like a little bit of a throwing shit at the wall type situation at Google if you look at their gamut. So when it comes to Project Aura, it's just not a category like they're 200-gram X real movie watching glasses kind of thing. So one thing it's worth saying, Android XR is an incredible operating system for headsets. If you try the Galaxy XR, you you will be impressed. It will hurt your head and you'll take it off, but just with the software experience, it's good. Now, what Google has, themselves admitted is that that's not going to be possible to run on smart glasses. And so they have a thing they call Google Android Micro XR. They have a bit of a naming scheme problem. And so we don't know exactly what the glasses are going to be. Is it going to be, there might be some Samsung glasses, which are like competitors to Meta Ray-Ban that are running, Android XR technically. But we're not really sure if they're going to have any kind of like app support. And then there's the ones that they've been teasing with the display. The ones they're teasing with the display is very much aligned with the Meta Ray-Ban display in terms of the weight and the battery and the fact that there's only a display in one eye. So for us, it's the things that are non-starters are, being 50 plus grams is a non-starter because people just won't wear it. They'll try it as a demo and they'll stop wearing it, and they are in that category. Another non-starter is being monocular, except for very, very rare use cases. Monocular is not going to fly either. The monocular means one eye display. And that's what they're going for. That's what they currently have is a one eye display. So, and then, say, well, why, but give them a little bit of time and they'll be able to do it. Well, from what we've seen historically, they continuously have design problems. They just aren't really able to make the hard decisions that you have to come to, you just get a two-eye display and a microphone and nothing else. They want to kind of pack everything in. And so that's what they have continued to do. And so, yeah, the glasses are going to be as useful as the Meta Ray-Ban display is right now, which is not.
So to kind of sum it up, everybody, so we have the Mentra Lives coming on February, displays end of Q2, beginning of Q3. Goal is to hit about 100, I think 50,000 units but install base by the end of the year. That includes both our own hardware and external hardware. And from that point, scale forward. What we're doing at Hartmann Capital, which comes with the strategic round, is that we partner with Mentra on what they call an ecosystem fund. So essentially, beyond investing more into Mentra itself, we've also earmarked $400,000 that we'll be investing into applications built on top of Mentra. So what that looks like essentially is we'll find 8 different developers, hackers that are building unique use cases, ideally to solve specific wedge issues for businesses, because there's real money to be made even with a small install base for enterprises. And so that could be that we, for example, back, 8 hackers with 50K each, where the goal is we back them as like the first investor, where they're like a one-man team, two-man team. They might still be in college, or they might still be having a job, where our money allows them to go full time building for these smart glasses and then fast track them to a pre-seed round and seed round and scale from there, so that there are true success stories built on top of Mentra beyond the first party apps, which already now are, high in utility. And so all this will happen like in parallel to the hardware work and OS work that Cayden is doing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And I mean, like, we've talked a lot about the hardware, and, the hardware is a prerequisite to make the OS, and that's why we're doing it. But really, we are focused in on building out the OS, building out the user base. We already have other glasses we support, like the Even Realities. The Even Realities just came out with G2, and we've been in continuous talks with them, and now they're on track to give us what we need so that we can add support for G2 as well by end of March, early April. That's really exciting because they're selling something like 5 to 10x as many G2s as they sold to the G1, and they sold about 50,000 G1. So that could be, hundreds of thousands of users for us. And regarding the ecosystem fund, we're convinced the successful companies, we think, of course, Mentra is going to be a successful company building the OS. What are their other successful companies? Well, there's OEMs who are building hardware, who probably are companies that already exist now. But then I think there's companies that don't exist now that are going to be massive players. They're going to be, the mobile world brought us the Airbnbs and Snapchats and Metas. And I think there's going to be just as many massive companies show up from nothing in the smart glasses paradigm. But I think because it's early, you don't win by, there's not the volume for you to go win on a consumer app right now when things are just getting started. I think that the companies that could, that will get big soonest and earliest are going to be B2B, just like you're saying. And it's really based around this fundamental kind of thesis of what we call AI co-pilots for the real world. So 30% of the world's economy is knowledge work, right? The lawyers and the doctors and everybody here on this call. And we're all getting massively upgraded by AI. Like we're using it constantly. We're running deep research. Felix is running Moltbot on his face, like we're able to upgrade ourselves because where we do our work is on a computer, right? And that's where the AI is. It's on your keyboard and your screen. But 70% of the world's economy is in the physical world, is tied to physical space and physical locations and physical manipulation. And they are unaugmented by AI at this moment because the AI can't see what they see and it can't give them information in the moment. And we're convinced that like smart glasses are just unlocking that the crazy productivity gains of AI for the other 70% of the world's economy. And we think we're not going to build every one of those use cases. We're building the platform that they'll be built on top of, but we are convinced that there's going to be many unicorns that show up because they build great AI co-pilots for the real world. And even like, some of the people, because it's not just the startups of the world interested in this. Like, we've got some friends at Anthropic, and they have a big internal thing they're talking about a lot is like the eyes and hands of Claude. They talk about this all of the time. And that some people interpret that as robots, and robots obviously will have a big piece to play in there. But the robots are still, a ways away, and the humans are already deployed, and it's a hell of a lot cheaper to deploy a wearable to a person to make them, uh, you know, 2x more efficient, or to allow them to act as if they've been trained for 10 years, even though it's the first day on the job, than it is to, train and deploy a robot in that new position. And so I think even the massive like AI players, for example, are realizing that they also need this kind of platform like Mentra Live, camera glasses that see what you see and then can give you information. And I think it's going to just be every physical worker in the world is augmented by AI. Like, and we have so many businesses that are coming in. We would love to give them away. Like, give these deals away. Like, we can't support. Every is the biggest delivery company in the UK. They deliver 1 billion parcels a year. That they're like currently emailed me 20 minutes before this thing to follow up on like the app that they're building and the support that they need. They want to put this on 30,000 delivery drivers this year to give them the directions, and then get out and it tells them what package to grab, and then it scans the package as they hold it in their hands, and they walk up to the house and they give it away, and then they take a picture and it uploads it to the thing. They could save minutes per delivery, right? Or like Napa, it's got 600,000 technicians, and there's constant turnover. There's constantly new vehicles being introduced. They just want to walk up underneath and say, "Hey, Mentra, what's the torque spec of this bolt?" Right? And these guys are ready if you can deliver on some of these basic things that the glasses can already do, and just obviously deal with their compliance and their needs and their on-prem and all that kind of stuff that you can do with MentraOS. There's a million people there with one B2B deal. So I'm monologuing about this one, but it's pretty
No, this is
exciting.
great.
Like,
This is
yeah,
like because this is real stuff. I think a lot of people still have the mindset, and not the people in this room, because a lot of them, they've been re following our work very close and they're very interested. But I know when I talk to, let's call them normies on the street, I think everybody still has a very dated understanding of smart glasses, and they don't see like the real value that like can be generated today. Like if you stopped hardware development, you said like, hey, we just have G2s, we just have Mentra displays in terms of capabilities. Like there's actual GDP growth that can be generated from applying them to those industries. From parcel delivery to mechanics. I was talking to a young developer that's actually building on the Mentra ecosystem. Shout out Mika. He's building essentially a security software for oil rigs. Because he used to work on an oil rig, and one time he left the wrong valve open, and then I think it caused a couple $100,000 worth of damages. And he realized, hey, for people like me, like in that kind of position, it would be super helpful if the AI can have a task list, a to-do list, essentially, of like, what do you need to do before you leave that site, and also maybe scan it and see like, are there any valves that haven't been turned the right way? Are there any buttons that you haven't pressed, right? So for QA, for making people smarter, so many different use cases where
yeah,
it is essentially ready today.
yeah. QC is humongous. You just have tens of millions of people working on manufacturing lines. And, like say Blue Origin just bought some glasses from us because they are making rockets and they want to be able to, when there's a problem, they want to be able to trace it down to exactly the moment that that thing was assembled and what was the problem and like what caused it. And of course, Blue Origin, they make a few rockets a year or whatever, but another one of our uh, you know, another very big, gigantic manufacturing company that we're doing a pilot with is that does have those kind of like hundreds of thousands or millions of people are doing the exact same thing, right? Quality control, where they can just see what the person saw and run it through an AI that can figure out any problems.
One question that does pose back a little bit to the prior conversation, Lars asked, when we talk about the hardware, it seems like a lot depends on very good power management. Since Mentra is an operating system, will other players like Meta be able to learn and copy the tricks?
Um, Yes, I think that people can learn and copy tricks for sure. So power management is determined by our architecture. So our architecture is the operating system architecture is distributed where the glasses connect to your phone. The phone is kind of a compute and um, and communications hub. It's in a lot of ways it's just a relay. The phone then connects to a relay server in the cloud that then everything relays through that to all of the applications that are running in the cloud. And then anything coming back from an application goes back to the relay server, sent to the phone, and goes to the glasses. And all of that's kind of compressed and optimized in a way to keep it super low latency. So if if that is copied exactly, then they would be able to get the same benefits. But at the same time, like with Meta, we're playing a different game than Meta is. Meta is not releasing an OS that other people can use on their glasses. If they did, then it would be a different story. But yeah, we can develop stuff, and because it's open source, and also even if it wasn't open source, they could figure it out. They could copy that and get some of those benefits. But they're not gonna, that's, like I'm said, it's a different game because we're providing this OS to different people. Now, if Android XR copies it, that's a different story. And we know what Android XR is doing now, and it's nowhere near copying it. We think it's the wrong direction entirely. The direction is going to be super power intensive. It won't support iPhone. It's got, some glaring problems. But I'd say the direct answer is yes. People could learn from us.
Awesome. I know we're coming close on time. We got about 5 minutes left. So I just want to, let's see, Tip Todd asked, if a developer builds, last one, we'll just make this the last one. There's other questions after this. Well, you can still submit them. I'll save them and then I'll try to get something to you afterwards. If a developer builds a breakout app on your platform, what category do you expect it to be in? Or what does retention/daily use most depend on improving over the next 12 to 18 months? Because those are different questions. You can answer both.
I think if there's a highly successful app in the next 12 to 18 months, it's most likely going to be a B2B application.
Mhm.
That because then that company, that's breaking out, if you will, is kind of controlling the demand. Like they're creating the demand. They're going to companies and giving it to them. And I think it's going to be like like the Napa one I mentioned, that's actually a real example. One of the companies that's building on Mentra right now has that deal with Napa. It's like there's a lot of milestones, but the end of the deal in a couple of years is 600,000 glasses. That's the kind of thing I think would completely go off in the short term. And I think that on the consumer side, um, well, I believe that it's captions, but I think the question is probably like if what new thing might it be? And the new kinds of things that I think are really promising are just new ways that we're interacting with AI. So Claude Code, Codex, agents, Moldbot, all that stuff is becoming the way that we work with computers. Some of it's hype, but a lot of it's not. And people go live their lives and do a lot of stuff. Gary Tam was just messaging about how he needs a backpack with a ventilation system so he can run Claude Code in between meetings. Like I think that the AI will have a human use tool where it asks you questions and it's just going to pop up on your glasses. You'll give it an answer and it will keep going. That could be one I could see that takes that really goes off and goes viral and has a big impact if we're like pushing on the consumer side. Yeah.
Yeah. And I agree. Like, I mean, for me, it's sometimes, Modbot goes to work for 30 minutes, 60 minutes, not an uninterrupted. I might just need to give it an input for 20
Yeah.
seconds, And so I think that's the kind of experience where in the utopia, the human lies at the beach with the glasses on and the AI
Yeah.
does the work and he just
And if you
manages
guys
it.
are interested in that, highly recommend. I just told Felix today to read Accelerando Part One, one of my favorite sci-fi books. And I like to think of myself as Manfred Max sometimes, but it does paint a future where people use smart glasses quite a lot, and it's specifically with these super intelligent AI systems that are constantly working for them, running many threads, and how does the human we kind of stay the center of that? We're the source of like agency and entropy and all the stuff, but it's fun.
Amazing. Well, guys, we're coming up on time. We got about 3 minutes, so let me just sum this up one more time. So, we're super excited about what Cayden is doing. We backed him last year already, so we are already an existing investor. We put in 300,000. We've just wired the next 800,000, so we're actually in now for 1.1 million dollars. This is a strategic round. There is no other SPVs. Nobody else is getting in. Essentially, we've got a $2 million allocation at a 40 million valuation, and that is because we're doing this ecosystem fund. We are firmly closing next week, February 11th. So all the money needs to be in by then so that we can wire the money over to Cayden in time before the classes launch, because we want to make sure that we get this done before that major catalyst to make that pricing fair. We are running via Sidecar. If you don't have access to Sidecar yet, make sure to send me an email right after. I'll make sure to invite anybody that was on this call today to the Sidecar. I'm also available for Q&A. So if you guys need to send me an email, ask more questions. I know 90% of the things. Of course, I can't say them as well as Cayden does, but we spend quite a lot of time. So I know the company fairly well. And I think there's a lot to look forward to because, between the launch of the two hardware devices, getting a momentum with the B2B deals, building that ecosystem fund, I think we'll be in an awesome position where, of course, it's not a promise, not a guarantee, but the plan is that the company raises at $100 million at $100 million plus valuation towards the summer, where we have a blockbuster Series A. And so, I'm already on board. Would love to have you on board as well. And if you're in fund two, we already got some exposure, but definitely would love to grow more with us. So, if there's any last comments, let us know. Otherwise, and then Anonymous Attorney said, thank you both. Thank you as well. And with that, thank you so much
Yeah,
for
maybe
taking time.
if I could just say real
Yes.
quick, yeah, thanks for the time. This was fun. This was very fun. And I would say, because this is a strategic investment, the reason we did this was for the MentraOS ecosystem fund first and foremost. And, I don't see all the list of names who's here right now, but I know that you guys are investing, that you guys are talking to all the best founders, all the best companies. And the reason we're doing this is because there's a powerful new tool that just showed up, and you couldn't build smart glasses apps before. Like
Mm-hmm.
we made it possible to build smart
Yeah.
glasses apps. That's what we've done, and it's not
Perfect.
it's not a crazy future. It's like it's shipping in 10 days. These glasses, and so like keep in mind that something that was never possible before is possible now. And the people can build massive businesses on this. And so as you're talking to founders, and just companies in your network and thinking maybe you're starting a startup, like realize that this is a paradigm shift that's happening now, and like we want to be your infra. Like I'm the infra guy.
100%.
So yeah. And yeah, thanks for
This
your time.
is yeah, and I'll just add one more too and say part of the reason why we got so excited about Mentra is because to us, this is one of those iPhone moments, and you don't get those all that often. You get these platform bets maybe once every 2 decades or so. We've had the PC, we've had PC, you've had mobile, and there's some early, movements of like VR with Quest or like or with the Ring, but those are still early. But even if you fully acknowledge them, it only happens every 2 decades or so. And here, to me, we have an advantage where one, we have a team that has actually done it before. Cayden came out of MIT Media Lab. Nicolo came out of, I always mispronounce it, Tsuonga University, but like the big HCI lab out of China.
Oh, yeah.
Hits his live mission. If you ever, after this call, just want to Google him and check out YouTube, you'll find videos of Cayden making smart glasses like 7 years ago out of an RV. So one of our core theses or like guideposts that's in our deck is values we use when selecting, which is missionaries or mercenaries. And I can't think of a bigger missionary when it comes to this specific sector than Cayden. So always will bet on him 10 out of 10.
Thanks, Felix.
Awesome. With that, logging off. Thank you so
All right,
much, guys.
cool.
And I'll be
Catch you
on
guys.
email.
Bye-bye.
See you. Bye bye.